Well, g'day team, welcome back to another one, NRL Round 16. I'm going to give you my tips and a bit of a preview of the round ahead. This round is a short round, what they call a major bye round, as we lead into State of Origin number 2, which I will talk about in another video before that game. Certainly a lot of player movements, a few more injuries to add to the mix, so there is quite a lot to unpack, so we may as well get into it. I'm going to try and set a bit of a record for myself and get through this as quick as I can. Anyway, the first game we have is Friday night, tomorrow night, Dolphins versus Storm, sort of a top 4 clash. The Dolphins currently ranked 4th, Storm currently ranked 1st. The Storm are favourites to win this one. It's a home game for the Dolphins. The last time the two teams played, they haven't played since last year actually. The Storm winning that one's 24-16. The Dolphins are without Felice Kaufusi and Tabuai-Fidow, but Jesse Bromwich is back from injury to offset Kaufusi, and Trey Fuller has been a very handy replacement for Tabuai-Fidow at fullback for quite a few times this year. Harry Grant and Xavier Coates are out for the Storm on Origin duty, but Ryan Pappenhausen is back, and thankfully, that means that fullback Suilavu Fa'alonga goes to the wing to cover Coates. Will Warbrick is also back from injury. Still a lot of class in both teams, to be fair. Both teams have reasonable depth, but the Dolphins have home advantage, of course, so you got to factor that in. But and they've also shown that they can beat a top 4 side in the Sharks just as of recently, as of last week. But the Storm should have too much class in this one, I think. I'm expecting Naslin Asofa Solomona to make a massive impact when he gets on. He's not playing big minutes this year, but when he does play, he is one player that can turn a game when he comes off the bench. So I'm expecting him to make a big impact. But look, all eyes are on Ryan Pappenhausen as he returns from injury. My tip for this one is I believe it'll be reasonably close. I think the Dolphins' home ground advantage just gets them a bit closer, but I have the Storm 1-12. I think they are relatively settled. So that's that one. We've got Titans versus the Warriors on Saturday. The last time these two teams met, the Titans won a close one back in round 8, and that was a home game to the Warriors. Titans, of course, haven't won many games this year, so that was certainly one of their best performances or results this year, and it was certainly a low point for the Warriors. I remember the last 20 minutes of that game, the Warriors just could not break the Titans' defence. But the Warriors' attack had been struggling at that point. It was sort of that low point in that period for the Warriors. David Fifita is back for the Titans, which is massive. He was only resting not just resting last week, but he had a niggle or something with his toe. But he's back. Moeki Fotuaika is on Origin duty, and Cleese Haas is out with injury, so there are a couple of outs there. But look, a lot of personnel changes for the Warriors. The Warriors are impacted by State of Origin as well, and I haven't got so far to work out whether Barnett will return or be released. I think he's named in the extended squad for the New South Wales. However, Kurt Capewell got the call up for Queensland and is in the 17, so he's out. The other injuries are Dallin Watini-Zelezniak, always a mouthful, and then Rocco Berry as well. So you've lost a couple of outside backs, but that's been offset by Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming back. So he'll move into one centre, the centre position vacated by Rocco Berry. And then on the wing there, instead of DWZ, is Edward Kossi, who's had a fair amount of experience in NRL experience. Pompey is named, although he had a bit of a nickel at the end of last week's game. Sean Johnson, of course, he'll be better off for the run last week. Tohu Harris gets the start at lock, which was a little bit different than he's been coming off the bench the last 2 or 3 weeks. And Dylan Walker will go in on one edge with Barnett and Capewell not there. Jackson Ford, of course, playing prop as he has been the last few weeks. In terms of the Titans, Aaron Clark starts at lock in place of Cleese Haas. But yeah, not a heck of a lot of changes there. Jaden Campbell still playing the 5/8 role. No sign of Tanner Boyd. Keanu Kinney playing fullback and really, just setting the world on fire. He's been very, very good for them. So yeah, look, I just think that Tanner Boyd's 18th man. Oh, so is Bunty Afoa. Yeah, you would expect Bunty Afoa to be in the mix, to be honest. They're not the biggest bench. But anyway, for the Warriors. But look, my tip there, I think the Warriors will bounce back from their poor performance, their underperformance last week. They're going to want to make a statement. They will. I don't think the Titans looked very strong last week. This is an opportunity for the Warriors to make a bit of a statement, and I think they need to. So I'm tipping the Warriors 13+. I mean, the Titans need to make a statement as well, but they're currently dead last, even below the Tigers after the Tigers won last week. The next game up is the Roosters versus Bulldogs. You've got the Roosters at 5th, Bulldogs at 6th, so they're right next to each other in the ladder. The last time these two teams met was in round 5. The Bulldogs won that one 30-26, so you'd argue that the Roosters will want to get a bit of revenge there. Matt Burton played a key role in that game, but look, the Roosters have a number of players out for a State of Origin, but that is pretty normal for them. But of course they get to keep Tedesco, their captain, for a change, which is quite nice for them. So who do we lose for the Roosters? You got Angus Crichton, Connor Watson and Lindsay Collins all out, and Spencer Leniu all out for State of Origin. Michael Jennings is out injured as well. But they've got Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, Brandon Smith and Terrell May, the starting front row, which is a bit different than last week, but very strong, very spoilt there. Nat Butcher comes into the back row and Victor Radley's there on the edge as well. And Nafahu White is at lock. They've got a little bit of experience on the bench with Tupanua and Wong. And Sandon Smith, Blake Steep, we haven't seen much of him. And Brandon Smith is going to want to bounce back after all the stuff going on with him. Although it didn't sound like it was too much, to be fair, when we heard from him talking about it. So anyway, he missed the game. He's back. But otherwise, the back line looks pretty tidy when you've got Sam Walker, Luke Keary, Dominic Young, Joseph Manu, Daniel Tupper, and James Tedesco being regulars, and Poga has been pretty regular as well. In terms of the Bulldogs, they have lost Jacob Preston and Kurt Mann. Preston to injury, Mann to suspension. He'll miss 2 games. Stephen Crichton is, of course, away on Origin duty, and he is pretty much their key man this year. So they will, but otherwise, relatively not. They weren't too disrupted. Gerald Skelton will get his first shot, I think, or certainly he hasn't had many first shot this year anyway. Otherwise, their backline looks reasonably consistent. So Jacob Carreras moves into centre in place of Stephen Crichton. Forward pack relatively unchanged. The edge has been mixed up a little bit. Josh Curran's got one spot and Jamin Salmon the other, but Bailey Hayward, I think, started at lock. So anyway, Bulldogs less impacted. I've got the Roosters to win this one 1-12. I feel like it'll be reasonably close. The Bulldogs have been really strong this year, and but you never know. If the attack is on for the Roosters, they will score a lot of points. Connor Watson's been a big part of their points, and same with Angus Crichton. So we'll just see. But you've got Teddy in the halves, so the spine, and of course Brandon Smith if he fires, and then they could score a few points. But I'm going to go 1-12 and give the Bulldogs a bit of credit there. And then we've got Rabbitohs versus Seagulls. Rabbitohs 14th place at the moment, Seagulls 8th. The Rabbitohs, of course, had they've won 3 in a row, and the Seagulls had coming off a great win last week. Both teams relatively impacted by our state of origin, but certainly the Seagulls much more so. So in terms of the Rabbits, they've lost Cameron Murray and Latrell Mitchell. Cameron Murray hasn't been playing a lot lately. He just played about half a game last week, and Latrell Mitchell has been key to their resurgence in terms of their last 3 wins, so he will be a loss. But they've got Joe Gray coming in for him, who's had a few games there already for the Rabbitohs this year. Jack Wyden at 5'8", it's always worth to mention. He is, I think the Rabbitohs look a heck of a lot better there, and Damien Cook's been playing really well. So that look, I'm sure they'll try and keep that momentum going even without Latrell. And then for the Seagulls, this is where a lot of the damage is. Daly Cherry Evans, Haumole Olakauatu, Jake Trbojevic, and those 3 are all on state of origin duty, and they've also lost Ruben Garrick and Taniela Paseka to injury. So yeah, quite a few changes there. Then we've got, what have we got? Aaron Schopp comes in. Carl Lawton, I mean, that's the only one really worth talking about, starting at halfback. Jake Simpkin is starting hooker. He's in his second game across for the Seagulls, coming across from the Tigers, and Ethan Bullimore gets a start in the front row there. Otherwise, that's a reason. Yes, and then a few new faces or pretty fresh faces on the bench. Look, you have to lead towards the Rabbitohs, and this one being technically a home game for them, but just much more consistent in terms of their personnel. They're largely less impacted. So yeah, look, I think you got to lean towards the Rabbitohs, and I have got the Rabbitohs actually 1-12, and my reasoning for that is because the Seagulls put up such an awesome effort last week that I don't know if they'll really let the Rabbitohs get away from them, and also the Rabbitohs don't have Latrell. But the Rabbitohs are starting to get in a bit of a mood here, and they like to put some point, and they may like to put a bit of point, a few points on. Cody Walker and Alex Johnson linking up really well, although Latrell leaves a little bit of a gap there. So, but look, I'm still going to stick with 1-12 because I just feel like the Seagulls are showing a bit of resolve at the moment. And then the final game of the round, Tigers versus Raiders. Look, let's just start with this. The last time the two teams met was back in round 2. The Raiders winning that one comfortably 32-12. Coruscant did his best in that game, but look, the Tigers didn't score after the 28th minute. The Raiders this time are without Jamal Fogarty, but that hasn't stopped them from winning some good games in the last month, or last 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Neither team impacted by Origin at all. So it's just, a typical game, bizarrely. So the Raiders, no real change. The Tigers, no real changes there. Tom Starling's out for the Raiders, but let's just quickly look at the Tigers team. They have Lachlan Galvin return. That's a key in. He was out for a week with a hand injury. And then you have, what I wanted to say was, no, I think it was Lachlan Galvin, and then the other talking point was Adam Dewey on the bench, or in the extended reserves, sorry. Not on the interchange, but in the extended reserves. We might see him. He came back through reserve grade on the weekend and played pretty well from what I hear. He's also just signed a fresh new contract. So if he gets a bit of game time, I'm excited to see what they do with him. Lachlan Galvin's been pretty good, and Aiden Caesar's been the pick in terms of the main game manager for the Tigers. And then for the Raiders, like I said, it's just Starling that's out through a concussion, and the rest of the team is relatively unchanged. Ethan Strange and Kao Weeks still running the show, and the forward pack looking big and strong. I think they'll be too good. They will be too good. I think the Tigers are just missing heaps with John Bateman and Isaiah Papali'i out. But Zach Wolford will get a run as the backup hooker off the bench. I am leaning towards Raiders in this one. I know that the Tigers did reasonably well recently, but last week against the Titans. But I mean, the Titans are 17th, so it was a bottom of the table clash. It's hard to get much out of that. Raiders are away, so it's a Tigers home game. I don't even know if it's like it again. Let's just have a quick look. I doubt it. Anyway, it is at Campbelltown, yeah. All right, so it's Campbelltown, so home game for the Tigers. But yeah, look, I'd be leaning towards the Raiders, and I have the Raiders at 1-12. I feel like the Tigers are showing a little bit of resolve there, but we will see. You don't know what will happen in the Tigers game. But anyway, that's enough for me. Hopefully, I have a bit better result on my tips. Last week I think it was about 50-50, and that wasn't even including margins, that was just picking winners. So it's been pretty hard the last month in particular, I would say. But anyway, enjoy the game. My main attention will be on the Super Rugby final this weekend, Chiefs versus the Blues. I'll be going to the game, sell out at Eden Park. If you don't normally watch rugby, try and catch that one, or at least the highlights. But it is about as big as it gets in rugby, certainly in this country. But when you think about it, it's two of the best, or we've got a few good Kiwi teams at the moment, but two of our best ones going head to head. It's better than most test matches, let's put it that way, in my humble opinion. But anyway, thanks for listening if you have, and enjoy the weekend's round of footy. Cheers.